Welcome to this review of Gunrunners, a small card game by Steve Finn. Since the game isn't out yet, this video is as much a preview as a review. A few years ago I had the chance to review Dr. Finn's first card game, Scripts and Scribes, which was then published in small batches for people who took the effort to subscribe to his email list. It was packaged in an old VHS case, which actually works surprisingly well. Eventually, it was picked up by a bigger company and was retitled as Biblios. Despite having your typical medieval theme, it stands out for its ingenious mechanics. It mixes light drafting with set collecting and bluffing in a way that works very smoothly. To many people, it's a hidden gem, which is of course an oxymoron, a hidden gem to many people, but you get the point. Right now, I have the privilege of reviewing Dr. Finn's latest offering, Gunrunners. Will it live up to the reputation of Biblios? Let's find out. Let's first take a quick look at the components. The advanced copy I received doesn't have the final production quality, so what you'll see here is a little rough still. Mostly what you get is cards. Most of them are agent cards, some with special abilities, as in this example, and some are just vanilla agents. The only thing that matters here is the numerical value. You also get a warehouse card and a few location cards like the one in this example. I should mention that in the photos later in the explanation I accidentally placed the location cards upside down, but I didn't want to reshoot all the photos, so my apologies for that. The last card is the bust card, which tells you how far along the game is. Lastly, you also get a bunch of cubes to represent crates of weapons. I had to supply my own for now, so I have no idea what the final crates will look like. And you get a dice and an instruction book. So nothing too spectacular, but I'm sure the final production values will be very nice. I like the art on the cards. It's quite futuristic, although the one female spy has a rather weird looking neck, which I find faintly disturbing. Well, what's the point of the game? You run a secret service in this game, and you deploy your spies and agents to different locations in order to confiscate illegal weapons. The cubes in this game represent crates of weapons, as mentioned, and once enough agents show up at a location, a bust occurs and then players collect crates according to the values of their spies present. Whoever has the most crates at the end of the game is the winner, so fairly straightforward. The way the game is set up is that you place one location card per player in the middle of the table. The example here is of a 3-player game. You also add a bust card at the top and a warehouse at the bottom. Step 2, each location gets 4 crates to start the game. Everyone gets a set of 14 cards and places one of their 1 value spies on the left of a location. So in this example, each of the 3 players has added a 1 spy face down, which is how you're supposed to do it, face down. Next, you deal 5 cards to yourself from your deck of 14 cards, and the game begins. Each turn is quite similar, and gameplay is quick. First, you roll the dice to see where weapons get delivered. The locations are numbered from top to bottom. So in a 3-player game, if you roll a 3, as in this example, you would send a crate from the supply to the 3rd location. If there are any crates in the warehouse, they also get moved to that location. If you roll higher than the number of location cards, so let's say a 4, 5, or 6 in a 3-player game, then you move a crate from the supply to the warehouse. The maximum number of crates in the warehouse is 5. When that happens, each location will get 1 crate from there. Next, you have to deploy an agent. You're allowed to have 1 undercover agent on the right side of the location cards face down. Otherwise, you usually place it on the left side as a probationary agent, also face down. I guess he's still in training. In this example, Green has decided that since the 3rd location now has the most crates, he will send in his probationary agent there. When you place a probationary agent, the previous card on the left side of a location gets flipped over and moved to the other side of the location. Generally speaking, you can't replace your own probationary agents, so you're forced to move someone else over to the other side. In the example, Red's probationary agent gets moved to the right side of the location card and is flipped over. No surprise, it's a 1. Each turn, the pattern continues. Players add a crate and place an agent. In this example, red places an agent undercover on the right side of the location cards. Until this card is flipped over, red is not allowed to add more undercover agents. He can only add probationary ones. Next, yellow adds a new probationary agent and flips green's card to the right side of the location card. It gets added to the end of the row, and the cool thing is that when you flip over an agent with a special ability, his ability takes effect. In this case, green gets to move 2 crates from one location to another. Not surprisingly, he moves 2 crates to the location where he has the best cards. We'll talk about the other abilities in a minute, but let's first see what happens when a bust takes place. Once there are 4 face-up cards on the right side of a location, a bust happens. All the cards get placed face-up, in case there are any undercover agents, and then you sum up the numbers on the cards. Then whoever has the most gets half the crates rounded up from the location. The second player gets half the crates that are left, again rounded up, and so on. So in this example, green easily has the highest sum, with 10, so green would get 5 crates. Yellow narrowly beats out red and would get 3 crates, and red would get 1. Ties, by the way, go to the player whose card is closer to the location. After a bust, some additional crates are added to all the locations. The game ends when there have been 7 busts, or all players have no cards remaining. Now you might say that's rather simplistic, but we haven't said much yet about the most interesting part of the game. As mentioned, a number of your spies have special abilities. These usually come into play when they get flipped over from the probationary side to the bust side. Let's take a closer look at what they do. The spy lets you rearrange the probationary agents. The informer lets you look at an undercover agent and move it. The runner allows you to move 2 crates from one location to a different location, as we saw in the example. The director lets you move a card on the bust side. The saboteur lets you try and assassinate another agent. What's neat here is that the bigger your target, the harder the job, because you have to roll at least as much as the agent is worth. The manager increases the number of undercover agents if he is face-up himself. Together, these cards create a very dynamic game. As locations gain more crates, you'll want to shift your resources to have the most agents in the bust. Being second will also net you something, but being third or fourth usually just gets you 1 or 2 crates at best. In addition, since all the decks are the same, you have a rough idea what other cards remain available to other players. And then there's the question whether to send in your agent undercover or as a probationary agent. The problem with going undercover is that you won't get to use the special ability, because when you turn over the card during a bust, it only counts for its numerical value. Having seen how the game works, let's sum up the pros and cons. Let's start with the negatives. For me, these are slight criticisms, but for others they may weigh more heavily. First of all, you want to play this game with people who can make fairly quick decisions. There's not that much to do on your turn. Roll the dice and add some crates and play a card. So play quickly and avoid analysis paralysis. Secondly, the theme is interesting and the integration with the mechanics is fine, but some might wish for more. I guess a probationary agent wouldn't see too much of the action, so playing them away from the bust side makes sense. It also makes sense to shift resources and manage undercover agents. But there's not a tremendous amount of bluffing and secrecy, and I think a bit more of that might evoke the real atmosphere. I think the final production components will probably help, but I can see some possible criticisms. Probably the strongest criticism I can think of is that after a while turns may feel repetitive, and there's not a tremendous amount of variation to what you're doing. Then again, it's a card game, so that is to be expected, and at most you'll get 14 turns, which shouldn't take too long given how short a turn actually is. Lastly, the smallest criticism is perhaps that the mechanics are similar to other card games. Here are a couple of games I can think of that have some similarities. In Dragon's Gold, players send characters to attack dragons, and then they divvy up the dragon's treasures once he's killed. The innovative mechanism in Dragon's Gold is that players have to agree on how to dole out the treasure while under the pressure of a sand timer. If they don't succeed, then nobody gets the treasure. The advantage of a game like Gunrunners is that it's probably simpler, and players are better able to move their resources laterally from location to location. In Dragon's Gold, the only way to shift resources is through the extra cards that are not part of the base game. Gunrunners also has more secrecy, but it lacks the cool sand timer effect. Another game that has some general similarities is Camelot Legends, which probably doesn't get played too often. Here players send their characters to different locations as well and try to do various challenges. The weakness of the game is that the rules are quite complex and there are a lot of modifiers to keep track of, but the theme is well integrated. So Gunrunners shares some features with other card games, but that's hardly a fault, and on the whole I found the game a quick, fun filler. Here are some positives to highlight. The game is easy to learn. You can explain it in about 5 minutes. It's also fast to play. A game takes about 20 to 30 minutes. There's a nice mix of special abilities and a good level of decision making. And lastly, the game has an unusual theme. So does it live up to Biblios? I would say that Gunrunners is another strong offering from Steve Finn. It's perhaps not quite as original, and it lacks the same mystery as to who is holding what cards. In other words, it has less of a narrative arc and is more about scoring sets of points as you go along. In Biblios, there's the big reveal at the end as you discover whether you hold enough cards for a majority in different categories. Gunrunners in comparison lacks that sort of drama. However, Gunrunners is the sort of game that you can pull out as an easy filler, make some tactical decisions and have a good time. It's not groundbreaking, but it's definitely an enjoyable experience. And that's it. Thanks for watching.